All right. I think we have the most drama-filled episode for you in our farmhouse build. Hey there, my name is Yami. I am your Latina next door. Welcome back to Mi Casa. I have my husband Nelson here, also known as the Latino engineer, and we're going to be talking about the roof. You wouldn't think that there would be drama, but boy, was there a lot of drama.
In the Spanish terms or the Puerto Rican world, they call it chisme.
What?
We got chisme.
Oh, you guys have chisme too. It's not just a Puerto Rican thing. By the way, he likes to be in the know with all the chisme, okay? I'm just saying.
Come on now. Like all the husbands, hey. What I like to do is get the kettle warm, boil some water, get honey, get the tea, get it all ready, get the cups, and then I give her tea, get my tea, and then we sit down and
I share the chisme.
She shares the tea.
All right. Let's get back on track.
So the roof, and the roofer. So we didn't directly know the roofers. The roofer was recommended by our framers. So we were like, all right, the framers, they did a job. They did everything they're supposed to do. So we're like, we're gonna take their word for it, and they showed up on property. The first red flag we saw was we were working on a Sunday, and they show up at like 5 o'clock, 5 or 6 o'clock on a Sunday.
And the sun's already going down at this point. It's starting to get a little bit darker.
Yeah, well, it's like at dusk, so it's like it's still dusk. Nice and pretty, but it's like the sun is going down, and it's like just random car pulls up. I'm like, whoa, what's going on with this?
So then they're like, oh yeah, we're the roofers, and we're like, oh, and they're like, we're here to start the roof, and we're like, do you have enough time? They're like, oh yeah, we have enough time. So then we're like, okay. And so then they start putting that paper down or something.
Right, the barrier between the roof decking and between the asphalt shingles.
Right. And just a quick note, we decided to go with asphalt shingles. We had considered doing metal, and a lot of roofs here actually, a lot of houses here actually have metal roofs, and we pondered that a bit. However, the roof that we wanted was the more expensive roof. And for our pitch line and for the size of the roof, it was going to be way too much. There was a cheaper version of a metal roof, but we decided not to go with that one simply because it just was not aesthetically pleasing. For the house that we have, the look was not going to be there. That was another reason.
Right, because you have a couple of different types of metal roofs where you have hidden fasteners where you can't see the screws, and then the cheaper option is where you just screw the metal roof down with a ton of fasteners. And if it's not installed properly, those fasteners will unscrew, or they will unscrew anyways innately, just because of the heat and cold. And we're like, all right, we got a ton of penetrations, so we didn't want to deal with water issues. So
eventually they were just going to have a lot of maintenance.
Right.
And Nelson wasn't going to do that because the pitch of our roof is really steep.
And our house sits on like the highest part of the property with a metal roof. There is no trees. That's like a huge lightning rod sitting in the middle of our property with a big metal roof.
We also have a friend that we've mentioned here before. He's our guy whenever we need something built on our property, like our little playhouse. He even suggested that we not go with a metal roof because he said, and we didn't know this, that there's a lot of condensation between the metal roof line and the sheathing, right, on the roof.
Yep.
So eventually you can get a lot of water damage on your roof because of that condensation caused by a metal roof. So we kind of, went with our gut, and it was just confirmed by him that we made the right decision not to go with a metal roof. So we just wanted to add that in there and give you guys that little bit of information. That way you guys know why we went with an asphalt roof. All right. So then they start putting the sheathing or the plastic barrier, right, that evening. And of course, they don't get very far because the sun's going down.
Right, but who shows up at your house on a Sunday?
That was a little bizarre.
Dusk? We're like, okay, that's kind of weird.
We gave them the benefit of the doubt, again, because they were recommended by our framer, who did an exceptional job on our house. So that was our first encounter and our first red flag. Our second red flag.
It's just they started roofing it, and then they just I don't know. I mean, I've been around construction, and you can see that you can know when people know what they're doing versus when they're just kind of half doing
Haphazardly.
right doing the work. And to me, I was like, man, they're it just didn't exactly look right. And we also, we were having other stuff done at the property, and that gentleman that Yami talked about will happen to be out here, and he brought something to my attention. So um, our roof has valleys where different slopes meet, and within that valley, you're supposed to put this barrier that's called ice water um, sheathing, which is like an extra layer of protection to go down the valleys because when it rains, all of it goes down into the valley and runs down. So you need an extra layer of protection on top of like the tar paper and the barrier you're putting down before you put down your asphalt. And there he's like, hey man, they didn't even put any of that stuff down. And I'm like, you're right. I was like, but I ordered it. Like we had a ton of rolls out there to put everything, and then they just started going off and doing their own thing. I was like, okay, that's kind of weird. So I immediately call and talk to them. I was like, hey, why aren't you putting this stuff up? And they're like, oh, we didn't think we needed it. I was like, what do you mean you don't think we needed it? I bought it. It's here. Use it. Well, we're sorry. We're just going to keep going. And obviously, that doesn't
That
sit
didn't sit too well
right
with
because it's like, hey, if we're
Nelson.
gonna do it, let's do it properly. It wasn't like I forgot to buy the material you needed. You just were lazy and wanted to get the roof done.
And the thing is, it was literally right there where they were pulling other material to put on the roof.
They
So
had to
it's not
step
like they
over.
couldn't see it.
They had to step over the extra layer of protection to get to the shingles, and then put the shingles on the roof. And we're like, so you were walking over this material to get to the shingles? Why didn't you use? Well, you're right. Sorry. I was like, well, no, it's not sorry. Now you got to rip portions of the roof off to put the ice water shield.
So unfortunately, that was going to cost us time.
Yep.
And that was going to cost us material
Right.
because if they already had shingles in those areas and they had to rip those shingles off, you can't reuse those shingles once they're ripped off in order to do it again. So we have done such a good job of just making sure we were on time and on budget with everything that we could control. And so that was a big we were upset. That was that we were not happy about that because we made sure that they had absolutely everything they could need right there at their disposal and all they had to do was use it. So that was unfortunately very disappointing and we let the gentleman who is the head of the framing, crew know, hey, this is what's going on. We've had to tell them several times that they're doing things wrong. Why is that? Why are these guys just messing up? And whenever we would call them out on it, they would get really upset with us because basically we were telling them, hey, you need to do your job correctly.
Oh, another red flag was the drip shield. So
Yes.
wherever the roof line ends, you have to put a drip shield first. Where the roof ends and the soffits are. You got to have a metal drip edge so the water flows over, and then you don't have rotting underneath on your fascia boards and your soffits. And they didn't have the right stuff, and then they just put it all on, and we're like, wait a minute. I was like, and then they waited until they installed like 90% of it. I was like, hey, this is the wrong drip edge. I was like, well, why did you install it?
Yep. They did not tell. They just installed it, even knowing that it was the wrong
The
one.
wrong stuff.
So that was something else that we had to order.
It had reorder.
It had to be taken off, and then it had to be replaced. And had they not said that from the very beginning when they knew it was wrong, we would have solved that headache. That's our dog snoring. Excuse him. So that was what I don't even know how many red flags we were on right now. But,
right. But and then they weren't showing up at the beginning of the day. They were also showing up like the middle of the day in the afternoon. So I don't know if they were working on another property and then just trying to fit us in, which is fine if you're doing the work correctly. Like I don't mind people having multiple projects going on. It's just you got to work your best for all projects. And what it felt like, I don't know if they were, focusing on that first project, and by the time they got to our project, they're already wore out, so they weren't even thinking. So it's like, hey, pay attention to our project just as much as you were the project you were at before you left. Or don't do two different houses on the same day.
I
So
know,
when you
just
come over, you're like wore out. Like that doesn't make sense.
yeah. So we had way too many headaches with them. Then
Then we had our final straw, which really set me off. And I'm gonna try to be it's to this day still extremely makes me mad. And we have kids, we have children, and this property is private. This isn't like we don't have a ton of people that live around us. And my daughter goes outside to take our puppies out, for their evening to go use the bathroom, and she comes running back in just scared because she's like, hey, there's somebody on our property. They're playing music, a lot of loud noise, and I hear them.
she heard glass shatter.
And she heard glass shattering, and we're like,
So we thought one of our neighbors was getting rowdy. Like, they were just having a rowdy party. And like you said, it's not very close to us. We're not in a neighborhood. We have space between the houses around here. So it was alarming that she even said, "Hey, it's kind of loud out there. What's going on?" But then what really made us go outside and investigate was the fact that she said that there was Spanish music playing. And we're like, "Wait a minute."
in the opposite direction of our neighbors. They were,
Right.
and it
And
was
we're like, wait a
towards the
minute, there's
house.
the only Latinos are us around here. You know what I mean? So who's gonna be playing Spanish music? Well, apparently one of the gentlemen that didn't like Nelson's handling of them not doing their job properly was disgruntled, and he showed up after sunset when it
Yep.
was dark out here, and this is what he did.
Yeah, he drove back onto our property and decided to drink on our properties, which again, he may have already been drinking while he was working. He decided to leave the property,
Mm-hmm.
go buy alcohol, come back on the property, continue to drink. And at the time, I had a dumpster, to get rid of the waste from the putting a roof on, and the fact that stuff had to be replaced. And I guess he just got upset, came back and started drinking on our property, and was busting beer bottles against the trash container we had out there.
And that's what our daughter was hearing when she went out to take the dogs out.
Which is, I mean, obviously it's super scary because you don't want like your children to experience that. And it's like if somebody has the ability to come back and have no disregard for somebody, what are they going to do to whatever?
We that was the biggest situation. Our daughter was out there. There was men on our property that we did not know who obviously were acting up. So that was it. Nelson was absolutely livid. You would not have recognized Nelson that night because he was really upset. We have kids out there, my daughter was out there, and you have these men on our property, disgruntled apparently, acting up. And that's a big deal for us. Nelson was not going to let that fly. So Nelson went out there.
Yeah, and when I got closer, I think they realized who was walking up to them, and they just immediately closed the doors and then ran off the property. Um,
But
and
we recognized the car. We knew exactly the car. As a matter of fact, it was the same car that pulled in that Sunday night, the very first night, to start on the roof. And that was it. Nelson got on the phone afterwards and he talked to the head framer, and he says, "That is it. You're going to find me a new roofer to finish or to fix, because they still hadn't fixed those little alleys, right? Those
the
the
valleys, yeah.
valleys, and to also finish our roof." And
And at the time, like so I closed off all the entrances to our property. I put my truck across the service entrance, so like nothing was coming in. And most of our property, that since we're like on a corner, they have these big culverts to go through them, so you can't go onto the property with a truck because then you're going down like a big embankment to get on it.
We
So
also have fencing. We also have
right,
like
we have
barbed
fencing
wire
and
fencing.
and
Yeah.
the natural barrier. So the only way you can get into the property with a truck, obviously you can still walk through it to get into our property. But I closed off all the entrances for like, yeah, going forward, nobody steps on our property unless they have permission to get on.
Yeah. And the head framer truly apologized. He had no idea that it would escalate to that. I mean, we didn't either. We're just here demanding that our house gets built correctly, and there's no problem with that because any other general contractor would have handled the same thing. We would have handled the situation the same way. Hey, you're doing the roof wrong, fix it. But I guess because we were the homeowners, I guess they didn't take to us or respect us as much as they would a GC. We don't know. We don't know. Again, you know, it's very different for every contractor that comes and builds and does anything to our house because they're talking directly to the homeowners. It's not like we're not here, you know. And normally a GC handles all that stuff, all that drama, and the homeowner does not have to deal with that. He handles that. But this is us handling it ourselves. And Nelson, I think he handled that very well. And he made sure, that the head framer knew, hey, this is absolutely unacceptable. This is not going to happen again. You're going to fix this right now. And thankfully, he did. He did. We never saw that group of people ever again.
Well, no, they got the warning, and anybody that comes on our property, I immediately take photos of all their license plates and all their cars,
Yes,
anyways.
he
So like,
does. He does.
they understand like, hey, uh, we can make this a really big deal because I already have all your info, anyways. So like, let's never see them again.
Yeah, we made sure. I think after that, Nelson, his attitude and his demeanor whenever somebody new comes on our property shifted a bit. We're trying to be as nice and friendly as possible because we want to make sure that everybody we hire does a good job and enjoys the atmosphere here, so that they could do a good job for us, right? This is our forever home. But after that, we had to do kind of like an attitude shift and really, make sure that we let everybody know that we're not going to accept any, outbursts, anything that's not, you know, um, professional. That's it. That's all we're going to accept. And so far, it's been good, right?
I think sometimes people see my demeanor that I'm happy, and um, that's not indicative of the person that I can be. I am nice and happy because I choose to be nice and happy. And going forward, I think everybody that steps on the property now knows it's okay.
He's not
That's a
very nice and
choice.
happy.
That is a choice that I make. That is not, you know, how I grew up. Just because I wear slacks doesn't mean anything. So I think everybody that comes on the property now is very, very well and aware of like who they're talking to. And then I think it's been, the good thing is it's gone much smoother after that because now anybody that steps on the property, they're like, yeah, let's make sure we do our job because like, and we do it professionally because if we're not, like, this is not a direction we want to deal with.
So Nelson, when it comes to his kids, when it comes to me, when it comes to our property, when it comes to our things, our home, everything, he'll turn into a different person to make sure that we're okay. And that's what we expect out of him when things get tough and things get a little dicey around here. He makes sure that he lets everybody know who's in charge, and he did. And it was a little concerning and a little scary at the time because we don't know these people. But he was able to handle that like I expected him to and appreciate him for. And we haven't had that ever since. So we didn't want to get too dark or too, serious
Yes, it's
on
kind of
this,
different from most of our
but
videos. So, but we
but
figure like
it
you
happens.
gotta we have to share our experiences, and not everything that can happen will be roses and sunshine. The real world it's not a very nice place, and sometimes you know nice people like you have to deal with bad stuff appropriately, and. I'm a nice guy by choice only.
So with that, we were gonna go ahead and share the B-roll for the process that of the roof, and that way you guys can see how it ended up turning out once everything was completed correctly.
So on a roof line, these valleys right there, and then on this side, that side, and on the other side, there's a flashing called ice and water. And what it is it's under protection that you put to make sure that your roof is protected. So when it rains or snows, most of it will slope and then hit right in the valley, drop down. So that's really your high weather points as far as what gets the highest leakage point. Normally you don't get it in, like on the, in the middle. It's usually wherever stuff meets, and then that's where you have to put flashing. The roofers, unfortunately, did not add them in. So we got 6 rolls of ice and water flashing, I believe is what it's called. I mean, I may not be calling it the right name, but fortunately now, since they left that off, they gotta tear the roof off at certain points and then fix it. So they don't have to tear the whole roof off, but then anywhere that there's a valley, they need to do that. So, obviously the setback is the time that it takes to do that and the added cost.
All right, that is it for today's episode of our farmhouse build. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please make sure to give this video a thumbs up and let us know what you guys thought of today's roof drama in the comments below. We hope to see you guys very soon with another update. Until then,
go Dogs. We're getting closer to football season.
adios.